Let's get an expert opinion from Radha D'Souza, who's a law professor at Westminster University here in London. Radha, thank you so much for your time. Just tell me how Indian law works, OK? This was passed on the 11th of December, and it immediately led to demonstrations because people say it's discriminatory. But now 5 Indian states and 1 federal territory have passed resolutions in their respective lawmaking bodies, which means that they will not implement the law. How does that work?
Well, you need to understand the federal structure in India, and the states are responsible for any statistical and other data collection, and therefore they are within their rights to say they will not collect the data that is necessary for the federal government to implement the law. This is one part of it. The other part of it is, of course, that although the BJP won the elections in 2019 at the federal level, they have consistently lost elections at state levels since then. So at the state level, on the ground, the tide is turning. And that is how I understand it. So it's partly the legal issue of whether the states have rights to implement or not implement the law. They are not saying that we won't implement the CAA Act, the Citizenship Act, but the data that needs to be collected for implementing that act, they say that is within the state government's prerogative and they won't do it.
OK, interesting. So in other words, kind of using a legal loophole. What's the status, as far as you understand it, of appeals against the law to the Supreme Court? There are almost 150. They're called petitions rather than appeals against the law. The Supreme Court, rather than making a judgment on those appeals, had given the government in New Delhi a deadline to respond itself to the petitions. And then would you expect the Supreme Court to make a decision?
That is a million-dollar question. Not because, that Supreme Courts always interpret the law, and any interpretation can go this way or that way. But I think the anxiety at the present juncture is that the Supreme Court's autonomy and independence has been consistently eroded since 2014. And this has happened. The first thing that the BJP government did when it came to power in 2014 was to insist that the federal government should have a role in the appointment of judges. And that was the first controversy that came up in 2014. They didn't get very far with that, but instead, through the back door, the judiciary has been, undermined, weakened, and its autonomy has been systematically undermined through appointments processes, through various other political maneuvers, which I can't go into now. And that means that people are genuinely anxious about whether or not the Supreme Court will give an independent judgment. For example, 2 days ago, one of the Supreme Court judges came out publicly and called Modi a visionary. This is not what judges usually do. And then today we have another judge that's come out and said people have a right to protest. So there is a real tension within the judiciary about, what is happening in the country at large. So 100-odd petitions, how will the Supreme Court go with this? I think that is the million-dollar question.
Radha D'Souza, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.